We Got This Africa is an April Communications production, proudly brought to you by Fritol. Fritol, you deserve a life of goodness. When I was in my 20s, I was constantly anxious about something. I was worried about my finances, my life choices, school, relationships, and so much more. Being in your 20s can take a toll on your mental health. Today on the show, I'm going to be joined by two ladies in their 20s, and we're going to be talking about navigating your mental health in your 20s. Lorinda tells us about her anxiety for fear of failure, and Jojo talks about her struggle with general anxiety and depression. If you're in your 20s, this show is for you. My name is Ashorkor, and you're watching We Got This Africa. Stay tuned.
We got this.
It's good to try something new every day. It's good to stay strong together. It's good when you get the rest you need because your family has got you. It's good to share nutritious meals cooked with Fritol, a vitamin A fortified oil. Whatever goodness means to you, Fritol stands with you. Fritol, you deserve a life of goodness. This advert is FDA approved.
We got this.
So Jojo, you just turned 20 this year. How's it going? Are you liking it?
I mean, it's like a new phase to my life, so I'm just like navigating this new path and
Okay.
to the best of my ability.
What's new?
School, COVID.
Yeah.
So COVID brought about many changes to my life, and so it's been interesting.
It's been interesting.
Yeah.
See, just 20, we're just starting. You just got onto the second floor. You've been 20 for how long?
For a while.
Okay.
It has been a while.
It's been a while.
I can't wait to get off this floor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm going to be 33 in a couple of days. And I don't know.
Happy birthday.
In advance, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. And I miss my 20s. Among other things, I had the opportunity to make most of the decisions, most of the things that are happening in my life now are as a result of the decisions I made in my 20s. And I was told this, that you know what, how the rest of your life will look like would depend on your 20s. And so I had a lot of fear. A lot of it. I remember I decided to go to law school and I spoke to my boss who said, "Nah, I think this is what you've always wanted to do with your life, but you have found yourself in an industry which you're doing well in. So perhaps you should forget about that dream and focus on what's working." And that was one of the most difficult decisions for me. I felt like, look, it was difficult. I was constantly afraid because he said, "This is what you're good at. You probably not do well." And we had so many stories about law school, writing the exams and how it is and trying to get in. And so I remember how anxious I was during that time. And in fact, for every decision I made, and I didn't have a mentor, so I usually just was by myself, but I was constantly afraid that I'll fail. And it was tough. But hey, I think it all turned out fine. What does anxiety look like for you?
So I don't know, maybe I'll just start off with when I first experienced, the whole thing. I initially, the big elephant in the room that no one really wants to talk about. So that mental health issues are they are real, but it's really not something that most Ghanaians
We're not comfortable talking
about. So I sort of like recognized it as, something that was very far distant from me. I never thought that there'd ever be a point in my life where I would battle with that. So fast forward to COVID, when I've always been an indoor person.
Okay.
And so, the whole COVID period was not very uncomfortable for me. It was just, I get to sleep all the time now.
Okay.
But I think that the fact that the entire world was experiencing it all at once opened me up to so many things. And so when it hit, I think right about a week into the lockdown was the first time that I had my meltdown. And it was crazy because I have always been the vocal child, but I'm a bit laid back. And so even when I have a brawl with my brother or with my sister, I'd probably let them get away with it because I didn't really like confrontations. But then when I had the first meltdown, I was talking back, I was shouting, I was just doing things that ordinarily I wouldn't want to do. I like to stay indoors and watch movies and all that, but it got to a point where I just didn't want to step out of my room. I draw my curtains. I think I got new curtains that were red, very dark, to give my room that
Blackout.
But I just didn't want any sunlight. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I'd wake up in the middle of the night without any provocation. And then I'll just go and take a shower and just cry my eyes out. And so it just got to, I think it happened 3 days on end. And then I realized I needed to speak to someone about this because it was hurting me. And so my brother knew a psychologist, and we got talking, and that's how my journey towards my mental health started.
Wait, did something cause this?
So, like you, I was a law student from faculty trying to get into the Ghana School of Law.
Okay.
And I had tried, prior to that incident, I had tried twice. So I tried in 2018, I tried in 2019, and I didn't make it. And then I had told myself that I was going to keep trying until I made it, because for me, unlike you, I didn't want to even try anything else. And so it's just been law school, like my goal for a very long time. And so I think there was a lot of pressure on me at the time. And having these sessions with a psychologist, so I saw 2 different psychologists before I finally had my diagnosis. And so having conversations with them and realizing that it was always, I just set one goal for myself. I needed to expand my horizon and begin to sort of like open myself up to other options. And I think that was my trigger, because then it became very real that it's possible that I'll sit for this exam and I wouldn't make it, and then now I have to think of doing something else. And so the fear of failing again, I think that really was...
That was the trigger.
The trigger, because I never really had that conversation. But now I was having the conversation, it was becoming very real to me, and that was it.
I know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to that exam.
Yeah, I finally made it though.
You're in now?
Yeah.
Yay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I hope it's all you hoped it will be.
Yes, and more. And it's stressful. The year that I thought I wasn't going to make it was actually the year that I did.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
What does anxiety look like for you, Jojo?
Anxiety to me is cold flashes and hot flashes in totally opposite weather. So for me, I went to uni in the US for a bit before COVID hit, and then I came to Ghana. So let's say in the middle of winter, minus 14 degrees Celsius weather, I'd have to walk around in a t-shirt because of sudden hot flashes. Just like in the middle of the day, just start removing my layers because of this hot flash that just hit me. Dizziness at random times, racing heart. And the thing about it is, it's like, it's never ending. It doesn't like go away. There's hardly a time for your mind to just like settle and be like, let's just be normal. Let's just think about things normally. So like you overanalyze everything, every action, and you start to think of yourself as like, why am I like this? And so it doesn't just like affect you, it affects your relationships. And so like, let's say you have, you just, in the middle of the day, you just get anxious, you get irritable.
What's your trigger?
Stress, and crowded places. And so if I do go out to a crowded place, I have to be right underneath the fan. And like, I'll look for all available exits before I'm fully settled into where I am. And it's just like, your mind is never at ease, even when you sleep. Though the dreams, I don't know how to, the dream where like you're falling and then you wake up, you get those frequently. And I didn't even know that that was like something that a lot of anxious people get until I was like reading some random article and I was like, oh.
You have dreams that you're falling.
Yeah. And then right before you hit the ground, you wake up. So,
is it regular?
it happens once every few months, but then like you wake up and like your heart's seized and then you're just like very...
That's scary.
Very. And it affects you for me, it affects me in school because like I'll be taking a test and then I'll just be like overthinking and then blank. My mind just goes blank. And so like everything I've studied just disappears from my mind. And it's like it's really painful because like you study for this test and you're
it
like... It
disappears for some time or that's it? You won't remember again?
You'll remember again when you least expect it to remember.
You have no control?
No. And when I came to Ghana, that was one of my challenges, transitioning from the US system to the Ghanaian education system because when I was in the US, I had learning accommodations for anxiety. So I would get extra time for quizzes and tests, and I would also get a separate room by myself alone, so I wouldn't just like get distracted by anybody else, and I could just focus on me. And I came to Ghana, and I couldn't get that resource, and so it really affected me.
Did you discuss this with your professors?
Yes, but unfortunately for me, they did not understand or chose not to understand what I was going through. So when I came to Ghana in 2019, I was doing online school from my university in the US. And I had always wanted to be a doctor. And so I was like, since I'm here, let me just get into med school here and then just stay. Because med school in Ghana is 6 years and it's just, you get in straight and then you go through. But in the US, you do 4 years of undergrad and then you write the medical school exam before you go into med school. So I got into med school here, and I couldn't. I realized that the one thing that I wanted since I was a child was not going to be possible because of the circumstances I found myself in and not having all the tools I needed to succeed. Because without those accommodations, I at a disadvantage to my peers.
Wait, when you say you couldn't, is this because you couldn't get the same, your professors did not understand that this is medical school. Medical school professors did not understand that you had struggles with your mental health.
It took a lot for there to be an understanding. And by the time they were willing to offer those resources to me, I did not want to because I didn't want to continue because I was like, this is like year 1. So before I get to year 6, this stress that I'm undergoing or going through would have multiplied. And it would not have been fair to my body to put myself through that, knowing that I was privileged enough to have other paths that I could follow.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I just won't do this anymore.
You had already started
Yes,
and you stopped.
yes. After first year,
That
I
must have been a
didn't.
difficult decision to come to.
It was. It was. Because it was something that I talked about all the time. And everyone around me knew that that's what I wanted. But like I have a little joke I tell myself that I didn't really specify what doctor I would become. So they can't really hold it against me if I'm not like a medical doctor. I'll just get a doctorate in something else.
Oh, okay. But do you find that people understand when you explain to them that you have this challenge?
No,
Not enough.
no.
And I think it's going to take some time. And like you were mentioning with her case, that even with like the medical school, they are having struggles. And we have a long way to go. But I think that we will get there sometime, because I'm sure even by the end of 2019, if you had mentioned to the medical school that they should have classes online, they would have said that's not going to be possible and people are not going to be serious and all that. But COVID hit and we were forced to
had
do
to
things.
figure it out.
Yeah, so I think that we'll get there someday, but there needs to be like more talks about these things. People need to come to terms with them.
So do you tell people in your life
Yes.
What do
that I have
share?
anxiety?
First thing I do, I tell them I have anxiety because my reactions towards things and the way I act in certain situations could be perceived as rude to some people. So loud noises, if I'm in a place where it's loud, I'll get irritable.
How loud?
Like 50 plus people talking at once. So let's say a dining hall setting, for example. When I get overwhelmed and in a really bad, anxious and depressive episode, I don't leave my room for weeks so I can be by myself.
I don't understand. So you go out and you have an episode, you come home and you stay in your room for weeks.
Yes, I have to. If I'm around a lot of people at once, I cannot do that over multiple times. I have to step back and recharge. That's the best way to describe it, like recharge my social battery.
So say if you went to a party, you couldn't go to church the next day or go to school the next day. So after the party, you probably have to be home for weeks.
Yes,
Before you can go out again.
yes. Because my mind and body get overwhelmed and I will eventually get panic attacks. So I try to limit situations like that because panic attacks, when they do happen, set you back.
What does a panic attack look like?
It's like someone is strangling you, but then it's like you're being strangled and you can't do anything. And so you're being strangled, you can't breathe, you have a headache, your mind is racing. And for me, I just fall to the ground and just lay there, start crying. It's like a really overwhelming experience that is hard to describe if the person hasn't been through, and that's the problem with mental health, is because if people find it hard to empathize with you because they don't understand what you're going through. Because if it's like something like, oh, I have malaria. Most people have had malaria at some point, so there's just like this understanding that like it breaks you down and you're incapacitated. But like if you tell someone I had a panic attack, they're like, okay, and so, and there's no like trying to understand. The person doesn't try and understand for themselves. The onus falls on you to try and explain everything to them, and it's kind of stressful because you're like, if it was something else, like if most people like will Google a symptom if they're going through something, but then they don't really want to take that step with mental health. And so you're going through something, but then to try and help the people around you understand what you're going through, you have to like re-explain and like go and talk about the trauma you've been through to try and get them to understand, which is like sad, because like, why do I have to tell you what I've been through for you to understand that this is the situation I'm in? And it's something like that people need to work on.
Yeah, we need to learn more about mental health issues, and a lot of us are guilty of not knowing about mental health and mental health related issues until or unless you experience it. You probably never look it up. And because in our part of the world, people are expected to just get over stuff.
Yeah.
You know, when something happens to you, you're supposed to just get over it.
Or pray.
Or pray, or go to church, or I don't know.
Push through. You're like, we went through it, so can you.
Figure it out. So it's not something that we lend a lot of attention to. And when we come back, we'll talk some more about this. You're watching We Got This Africa, and this is our episode on navigating your mental health in your 20s. Stay tuned.
We got this.
It's good to try something new every day. It's good to stay strong together. It's good when you get the rest you need because your family has got you. It's good to share nutritious meals cooked with Fritol, a vitamin A fortified oil. Whatever goodness means to you, Fritol stands with you. Fritol, you deserve a life of goodness. This advert is FDA approved.
We got this.
Have you ever been in a room with someone who has complained about how loud something is, loud chewing, slamming of doors and so on, and thought there's some way? Perhaps it's a trigger for their anxiety or just makes them extremely uncomfortable because they might be navigating some mental health issues. Today on the show, I am chatting with Jojo and Lorinda, and we're talking about navigating your mental health in your 20s. Now, I say this because I was once at a cafe with a friend, and it's a very popular cafe in Ghana. When new customers come in, the waiters and the people who work there shout. They would shout. They have a slogan. So say, welcome to our happy space. So the moment you walk in, they do 3, 2, 1, welcome to our happy space. For everyone who walks in. It's like a happy place. So I was sitting there with my friend, we were having coffee at lunchtime, and then people walked in, and then they all screamed, and he screamed back. Now I was sitting there like, okay, what's that about?
You got startled.
Yeah, when he screamed back. And then he said, he said, he used the word, he said something to suggest that it unsettles him. There's a word for it. But it's sort of, he suddenly gets a brain freeze, he can't think, and then he feels like something is about to happen. I'd never seen anything like that before. So I asked him more questions and he explained that he has anxiety. He constantly thinks something bad is going to happen. And so if he was looking at them and they did that, he probably wouldn't have reacted the way he did. But we were deep in conversation and then they just shouted. And then just suddenly he panicked and we had to leave. That was the first time I saw something like that. And so I had to read further to understand exactly what he meant. Now, while a lot of us don't know enough about mental health challenges, among other things, I feel like it's because of our socialization. Have you spoken to anyone about your anxiety who has said to you, get over it?
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
tell me.
Yes. And so you have, even with even my mates, those I'd even tried writing the exam with a couple of times,
Yeah.
they are so, because you didn't get it, so you wanted to, the typical say way and there's
I know.
nothing to it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And it gets very depressing. And you see, one thing people need to understand is everybody, every single person goes through a mental health issue at a point in time. It's just like a scale. And so I don't have episodes like Jojo, but my episodes are different. They are not as often as hers, but at every point in time, even within a day, it's possible for someone to have multiple meltdowns. It's also possible for someone to have it just once in a year. Yeah. It's possible for someone to have it 12 times within a year. We just need to understand that at every point in time, we all struggle with one mental health issue or another. So we shouldn't have to think that it's only when you have the extreme kind that, you are struggling with it. We all do. We all do.
Sometimes it's difficult to tell if you're just sad, or depressed about something.
And that is a mental health issue. That
Being
in
sad.
itself, yes, is a mental health
Okay.
issue.
I see.
So if you wake up, sometimes we women call it mood swings.
Yeah.
But that is a mental health issue. And so you need to just understand, like for me, I know that whenever it has to do with something that's really important to me that I have to try multiple times, I am susceptible to getting anxiety. So, there are stress-related disorders. So yours may not be stress, it may be something else. And so
I can't help but agree with you that we probably all suffer some mental health challenges. Because as you were talking earlier, I was thinking, this sounds like something that I experience sometimes when I'm out and I talk to a lot of people and I get into my car. I really prefer nobody joins me. Like I can literally be going to the same house, you and I would prefer you took
an Uber.
Yeah. And just don't be in my car right now.
Yes.
And I have sometimes wondered about it because it doesn't make sense. I mean, we can sit in the car and just don't talk. Let's just have a quiet drive home. But I really prefer you weren't there.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like it's just really mean.
It's not.
But
it's just
the
whatever
way
you
I
need
feel.
to do to get by.
And I always feel guilty when I think that way. And I always tell my friends, though, that my drive time is my favorite time because there's nobody in the car.
It's just you.
It's just me. Music. And I prefer that. So if you want to ride home, you have to tell me last week that next week, Tuesday, I would like to ride home with you. And then I'll have to internalize that. And then I'll prepare to have you in my car on Tuesday.
So you see? Same way with family events.
Okay.
I'm just like, okay, so it's fine. We can have auntie this and auntie that over. But just tell me ahead of time so I can psych my mind for it.
Exactly.
Because if you just spring it on me, I promise you I will just hide in my room the whole time.
I totally get it. I totally get it. But sometimes, you don't think of it as a mental struggle. Mm-hmm. Or I don't think of it as a mental struggle. For example, if you show up at my house, I probably won't open the door. Unless you call me and tell me that you're coming to my house and I know you're coming. I literally can look at you knock and watch you knock till you go. And I'll humbly text you that, well, I did not know you were coming. I mean, I have friends, and sisters who do it, who watch their phone ring because she could have texted.
Yeah.
And then why?
That's the thing. I like a lot of things that people call you about can be a text.
Yeah.
You don't need to.
But
hear
you know,
my
I don't
voice.
think of it as a mental struggle. I just think of it as, well, why are you calling when you could have texted?
But it is, because probably at that particular point in time, you're just really not in the mood to be chitty-chatty or any of
So
those
it's not a
things. And
rude.
so-
It's not rude.
No, it's not.
It's just
you being you. And you
So
see
it's
what
okay?
you need. It's fine.
okay.
It's just, it's
Feel
just
affirmed right now, don't you?
I tell you, I absolutely
it's just
do.
anything that you have to do to get by, because it can just end up in so many things. And so,
Yeah.
for instance, with my episode, after having so many sessions, I realized it was just a bottle up of all the emotions that and you know, I was just, so in 2018 I sat for the exam, and then the list came out, and then I didn't make it, and the next day
2019.
I was just at the library. I had
You had
started
started studying
preparing
again.
Yes, for the next year. And so not allowing yourself to go through lots of emotions can also be a recipe for disaster. And so there are just so many things that we do on a daily basis that can actually lead to a deterioration, so to speak. And so we all go through mental struggles, but how we deal with those struggles determine how serious
They could get.
They could get. And so, yeah.
I think it's great that you, got to know that this is what you struggled with. And you weren't in Ghana.
No.
You were in the US. So I'm guessing it was easier to get access to a therapist.
It was much easier.
Okay.
Because there's more understanding. And so, like, if I was not feeling well and couldn't go to class that day, I could just be like, okay, Professor, this is what I'm going through, so I will not be able to make it to class today. And there was like, they wouldn't make you feel guilty about it. There wouldn't be like no snide comments from your classmates or anything. But like when I did that here for the first time, I came back to school after a period, and they were like, "Look who's back," and it just like dampened my spirits, because like they made it seem like I was on this like holiday. There was like no understanding that I wasn't okay. It was just like, oh, she's just not in school.
Does it ever end?
No. It just keeps going on and on and on. And you can try, and so there's high functioning and low functioning. High functioning is you have everything going on, but you're able to go through normal human activities like shower, go to work, be productive in a way, and you'll crash at the end of the day, but at least you're going through what you're supposed to do. And low functioning people can't do any of those things. They need extra assistance to be able to like clean themselves, wash themselves, and do all of that other
Like
stuff.
take a shower?
Yeah.
Because they have anxiety?
Yes. There are periods where anxiety doesn't just affect your mind, or like mental health in general doesn't just affect your mind. It affects your body and breaks it down till you're a shell of who you used to be. For me, I used to love reading. I would read 5+ books every week, whilst being able to keep up with my schoolwork and play sports and do all of that stuff. But when I eventually crashed, my first big crash, after that, I was not able to do any of that stuff. I wasn't able to read or play sports or go out with my friends. And last week was the first time this whole year that I read a whole book, like front to back, without like pausing for an extended period of time. And to someone else, they'll be like, why would it take you so long? Like, you just sit down and you flip the pages and you read. But when it gets really bad, you can't do any of that stuff. There are times where I just sit in my bed, shut my windows, just me in my bed on my phone, scrolling through Twitter. And it's like it's like my coping mechanism. Like, some people will drink or do drugs as a way to help them like cope with everything they're going through. But mine is just laying in my bed and scrolling through Twitter.
Are you able to eat?
Yes, sometimes. There are times where I overeat, and there are some times where I don't eat. I'll eat, like, I'll drink a malt, and that's the only thing I'll consume the entire day. When I have really big presentations or an event that I've been looking forward to, I don't eat that day because I don't want to have a stomachache or something. And that's bad.
So I tell you what, yesterday when I got home from work, my stomach was so large. My husband said to me, "You're stressed." And he just looked at my stomach and said, "You're stressed, because that's your stressed stomach." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, you're stressed. That's why your stomach is looking like that." And I'm just listening to you right now, and it makes absolute sense to me, because every time I'm stressed or I'm under a lot of pressure, I'm working,
Bloated.
I get so bloated, it doesn't make sense. I mean, my stomach can be as flat as a paper in the morning. And by the time I'm done with my day, by the time I go through the day, I'll have a very large belly. It totally makes sense now. Like, you know, this conversation is so much therapy for me. I tell you, because there are things you guys are saying, I'm like, wait a minute. That makes sense. Anxiety can give you indigestion and bloat. Huh.
It really
Have
messes
you
with
ever
Okay,
experienced
so
that?
mine was diarrhea.
Diarrhea?
I would run and it was crazy.
It actually has a physical toll on you.
Yeah, it does. It does. I didn't know I had lost so much weight. Because I wasn't eating. She was even able to pick up her phone. I didn't want to interact with anybody or anything. My phone went dead for 8 days.
In this
Yeah.
world,
And I did not want to charge it. I just didn't want to have any interaction with anybody. And it was
did your family understand? Were they coming to you and bugging you with questions and trying to get you out of
initially
your room?
my mom, my dad is usually in and out of the house, but my mom is she's on retirement now, and so she still does it. My mom can just barge in my room like I share it with her. I thought it was just my mom. I heard all moms do that.
Yeah, welcome to the club.
So yeah, it took a while, and it was weird because my mom was a retired nurse, so it was pretty hard for me because I thought that if I should have picked anyone to understand what I was going through at that point in time, I would have picked her. And I think my mom also got to learn a lot of things because she just didn't understand how I would struggle with mental health issues. Because I mean, I am affable, I'm vocal, I'm
Smart.
outgoing, I'm smart, and I have everything. I mean, I'm thankful that I have a family that can take care of me. I didn't have any needs, and so she didn't understand. She just didn't understand. And
There's also, speaking of like, you had everything, there's also like this misconception that people who don't lack for anything are not allowed to be mentally ill, because people see you being mentally ill as like a lack of like
probably
basic
broke.
needs. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be broke to
Exactly.
be. It's not like you're not
Because
being
you know when you don't have
appreciative.
money and you have to think and think and think about
Yeah.
how to get this and that, then it makes
And
sense that
stress.
overthinking
Yeah.
will stress
And
you
Wow.
and trigger.
as part of my therapy,
Yeah.
I watched a movie.
What's the title?
So just a minute.
Okay.
So in the movie, I don't know how and why, but I think my therapist felt I could relate. So it had to do with a lawyer who had everything. He was young, he was successful, he had a very beautiful wife, he had beautiful children, he was earning 6 figures. He literally had everything, had 6 packs, like he had the looks, he had everything was just working for him. And one day he just went on top of his building, work building, and he wanted to jump. Someone saw him, and then they took him off, took him to therapy, and apparently being too successful is also a recipe for a mental breakdown. And so and so that's why I keep saying that at every point in time, everybody goes battle something. You're probably making like the greatest decision in your life as per career, or who to get married to, how many children you want to have, even picking out a dress for a party, whether you want a red one, whether you want a pink one or a black one, can actually be a trigger for a meltdown. And so it's not far from anybody.
Yeah.
It is not far from anybody.
Yeah.
And they are always unexpected. Well, not always, but for the most part, you don't even know
That
what is
you're-
going to cause you to have this meltdown. It can be anything. It can be, it will take one wrong word from someone to just like set you off. And that's like the really stressful part about it, because like there's no way to predict what is going to happen. You have no control over it, and that's one of my stresses, is that at any point in time in my life, I cannot control everything that's happening around me. I cannot anticipate what someone's action is going to be and the effect it's going to have on me. And so it's you sitting in your room by yourself because you can control how cold it is, or who comes in, or how loud it is in your room. Like you can control those things. So when you sequester yourself, there are less things that you have to worry about. And that's what a lot of people in my situation would do, because it's just easier that way.
It's safer.
But then you can't do that forever, because life still goes on.
And I think as an add-on, I think a lot of people have the perception that getting a psychiatrist or a psychologist is expensive in Ghana.
I have a lot of questions to ask you on that, getting a therapist in Ghana. But you stay tuned. You're watching We Got This Africa. We'll be right back. Are we back? All right. I have a bunch of questions to ask you about getting a therapist in Ghana. But you hold the thoughts. You're watching We Got This Africa. We'll be right back.
We got this.
It's good to try something new every day. It's good to stay strong together. It's good when you get the rest you need because your family has got you. It's good to share nutritious meals cooked with Fritol, a vitamin A fortified oil. Whatever goodness means to you, Fritol stands with you. Fritol, you deserve a life of goodness. This advert is FDA approved.
We got this. baby.
Sometimes you're aware that you have mental health struggles and you want to see a therapist in Ghana. But there are so many rumors about how expensive good therapists in Ghana are. Now, you've seen therapists in Ghana. How many have you seen? Two. Are they expensive?
No, no.
Are they difficult to come by?
No, they're not.
How do you get a therapist? How do you come by one?
Apparently my brother and the psychiatrist were mates back at Legon. And so that's how, when this whole thing happened, he said he felt he didn't want me to talk to him. He wanted me to talk to a mutual person so I could heal faster. And so he got in touch with her, and then I went with, and the clinic is just at East Legon. And so I went to see her, and after 2 sessions with her, she realized mine was not very serious. So she wanted me to, because for me it was more of like a social problem. And so then she referred me to a colleague of hers who handled me pretty well.
So there are different types of therapists for different conditions?
Yes.
So how do you know what your condition is?
You wouldn't know. It's like
Tell you at the first session, they'll be like, okay, so this is what I'm specialized in. My therapists in Ghana and in the US, for the first session, it's just like a get to know each other. Mm-hmm. So you tell them the gist of what you're going through, and then they tell you, they usually tell you about their degrees and what the type of therapy that they specialize in. There's cognitive behavioral therapy. That's what I do, which basically...
Is that for your anxiety?
Yes.
So you suffer from anxiety and depression?
Yes.
Do they happen at the same time?
Not for everyone, but yes.
For you?
Yes.
So you'll be anxious and depressed?
Yes.
Does one trigger the other?
Yes. If I get anxious enough, it can push me to have an episode of depression where I don't leave my room for weeks at a time.
And when this happens, would you tell your family that I am depressed and so give me some space?
Yes. They're very understanding. I'm very blessed. They'll make my food, put it down for me. When I'm ready, I just come eat. And they'll help me do my laundry. They'll help me tidy up my room. Stuff like that, because sometimes I just can't do it myself. And other people can sit back and we'll call it laziness, because it's easier to say someone is lazy than it is to delve into what they're going through and understand where they're coming from. But yeah.
Does suffering from anxiety and depression make you sad?
It doesn't make you sad. It makes you numb.
Numb?
Yes. Like you don't really feel happiness. Like you can be like, you can laugh. Like I can scroll through TikTok and like see a funny video and be like, haha, okay, that's funny. But like, I'm not happy. I'm just there. And sometimes my emotions will overwhelm me. They'll just like pick one day and decide to return. And then days like that, I can just like sit down and cry. Because it's just like, you just have all the emotions of like a couple of months just flowing in through you at once. All of the like anger, all of like the happiness, and you can't do anything except sleep or cry. It's overwhelming.
I've never heard that before.
It's good. It means not a lot of people go through that, and that makes me happy because it's not the ideal way for a person to live. It really isn't. My brother, he's 10. It's a big age gap, but he understands me a lot better than most adults do. And he'll be like, Jojo, are you okay? And he'll just come into my room and sit on my bed with me sometimes. or just like ask me to watch a show with him just to be around me because of how often I sequester myself in my room. And he tells everybody Jojo's always in her room. And it's easier for me and everyone if I just like be by myself. Because then when I'm around people, I feel like I'm like dampening the mood because I'm not like as excited as everyone. Like you can be laughing at something, they'll be sharing, passing the phone around of laughing, and I'll just be like, okay. And it's just like, oh, why are you like that? Nothing.
Do you have a best friend?
Yeah.
Okay. How does that work for you? Do you want your best friend around you? Do you want to talk to them all the time?
No. But my best friend's always also depressed. so I don't really have to explain that stuff to them. Like we know how to relate to each other. Both of my best friends are depressed, but it's easy because you can have time periods where I'm on social media and like you can see me active, but then you'll text me and I won't respond, and someone else will be like, okay, why are you ignoring me? But then my best friend will be like, okay, just text me when you're okay. And so I don't really have to explain myself. There's already that understanding of what we're all going through. So I don't have to like overexert myself trying to be at par with how equal their relationship is because we understand what we're going through.
It's easier that way.
Yes.
Have you ever had a romantic relationship?
Yes.
Do you still have one?
No.
How did it end?
It was very sour ending because how do I even explain it? It was hard for us to understand each other, but in particular him to understand me because of everything I'm going through. And so
it was hard.
Yeah.
How about you? Do you find that does your anxiety affect your relationships, your friends, romantic partners?
So the reason I was laughing when she mentioned her best friend is because my best friend was also going through a meltdown at the time that I was. And so I had my mom called her to tell her this was what I was going through. And she calls me and we were both laughing because she was going through the exact same thing at that particular time.
Also law school?
Yes, also law school. And so sometimes in misery lies content, but it helps when you have people like that who
can understand.
I'm actually in a relationship, and thankfully the person I'm with is a medical doctor, and so it's easy for him to understand these disparities.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for sharing in the way that you have. And I tell you no lie, this conversation has actually brought me a lot of understanding about my own mental health issues and the things that I deal with, even with my friends and my sisters, and so on. So thank you so much. I'm really grateful. And if you can relate, I hope this brings you some healing, so to speak. If you can't relate, I hope you make time to read about mental health issues and understand. It will make it a whole lot easier for all of us to be able to live and coexist comfortably and more lovingly in this world if we read and understand mental health issues. Because like it's been said, all of us will suffer it at some point. Better understand it when it comes. My name is Ashorkor, and this has been We Got This Africa.
Whatever you do, do them well. Make it no worry. We go stay okay, we go be alright. No, Inyami, go chichino. Inyami, bano fe. Inyami, walk on jano. Kenya fe, bano fe. Inyami, go chichino. Inyami, bano fe. Inyami, walk on jano. Kenya fe, bano fe. Kenya fe, bano fe. Kenya day.
We Got This Africa is an April Communications production, proudly brought to you by Fritol. Fritol, you deserve a life of goodness.